Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Stories Inc. LinkedIn Live session. My name is Bernadette Van Giesen, and I'm your host. For our regular viewers here, I'm welcoming myself back. Hi. I just returned from maternity leave after welcoming a healthy baby boy in January. Had a wonderful time bonding with him, but I'm excited to be back with my colleagues at Stories Inc. and with you all here on LinkedIn. So thanks for everyone who jumped in while I was out. But let's get into it. So today we have a really interesting topic, which is leadership storytelling on LinkedIn. And it's a topic that's very dear to my heart and to our guest's heart. Today, we're going to be discussing the significance of shaping leaders as brand ambassadors and why LinkedIn is such a powerful platform for their thought leadership. So we're going to give you tips for selecting those leaders, facilitating those interviews to get their stories, and creating content that resonates. To discuss this topic, we are joined by none other than Lauren Sargent. Hey, Lauren.
Hello. Hi, welcome back.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
Thanks for
this
coming
is
on the show.
Yeah. And I know this is a topic that you love.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I think we are really two good subject matter experts to talk about this topic because we've been working together for years trying to game this algorithm. Just kidding. We know that the valuable content is the goal. But yes, I'm really excited to share everything that you and I have learned working together on LinkedIn posts over the last several years.
Yes. So Lauren and I are going to be a little bit of a walking case study today because what we're going to talk about is tips for leaders sharing their stories. The best kind of 1-2 punch is having a marketing and comms professional to bounce ideas off of, be a thought partner. And I'm that person for Lauren.
For sure. You've been so valuable. Can't do it without you.
Okay, so let's get into our discussion today. So can you tell us a little bit about why LinkedIn is such an important platform for leader storytelling?
Yes. I'd say it is still a giant opportunity for leaders because, like me, they have most likely been building their network over time, but they haven't activated it by regularly sharing their experiences. So I used to share a corporate update every now and then, maybe a quote I like, and that's great, but it's not really building or activating my network in a meaningful way. So a leader's LinkedIn network is likely an untapped marketing channel that is ready to be activated. They've done a lot of the hard work already, having their connections. So all it needs, which we know is super important, are good stories. Many of which should connect to a cultural message or initiative. And that's where comms and marketing can really help a leader in uncovering their unique perspective and get them going on the platform. Of course, it is LinkedIn, so that connection to work and that personal story is key. But it's still a giant opportunity for leaders to get on this channel.
Mm-hmm. And as the marketer, if you're out there wondering, should I be doing this? An angle that I really appreciate about leader storytelling is it gives you another way to talk about your brand content too. If you are the voice behind your corporate channel, like I am, it's really important to stick to your brand voice, to stick to your core messaging. That being Stories Inc. on LinkedIn is critical. That having your leader be able to talk about the work that you do in their own personal way just lets you experiment with different messaging. You can try a couple of different things out. And then it just also taps into their network and gets more eyeballs on the things that matter most to your company. So there's also just huge marketing and brand opportunities too.
Yes, for sure.
But I will say it's also important to remember it is your leader's LinkedIn channel. It's their personal account. And no one wants to see just like a regurgitation of brand content. It's not adding value. Honestly, it could actually end up hurting you more because people just are not into it. So you're not just regurgitating what your brand content is. It really should be complementing each other. But it ultimately is your leader's personal account. So it's an important thing to keep in mind.
Yes. And it really only works if that leader is sharing real experiences and being authentic. We get it. That's a buzzword. We get it. But it's still the most accurate way to describe the content. And so ultimately, having leaders sharing their real experiences, of course, builds trust with their audience. And just like sharing employee stories, when someone can be real about their experience, candidates and employees trust the information more. So this is a reason to activate a leader through stories. And when leaders share their real experiences on LinkedIn, as Bernadette mentioned, it's great for the brand. But it's also great for the leader's brand too. It's also great for your audience. So 3 people win: your brand, your leader's brand, and your audience, because they want to hear from leaders. And what's really cool and a real opportunity here is that while your audience wants to hear from leaders, what they're expecting to hear from them is corporate speak, because that's what leaders do. When a leader can be a human by sharing their stories, it's actually ultra memorable and engaging. And I still think the bar is pretty low here. When you can use the leader stories and also pair it with your corporate messages, it's just a home run.
It really jumps off the page. Yeah.
Agree. Yes. And also to this value in leaders posting, personally, I can say I've gotten a lot out of the process of reflecting on my experiences and connecting it to what's going on in our culture or in our plans for Stories Inc. And there's just this also altruistic thought where you're actually helping people, in my case, helping people build companies and build culture and teams that might be coming up behind me. So I've also built a better network, and I've activated the one I have. So I've just found, as leader, I've just found a lot of value in posting personally and with Bernadette's help, of course.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, so I think in a perfect world, every leader in your organization would share a post once a week, and like we would all win on the internet. Like it would just be like a dream. But that's not a reality. It's really hard to do. And I think setting that expectation, you're not necessarily setting yourself up for success. So I love this idea of starting with a leadership series because it's specific, it's actionable, it's really just something that you can focus on and accomplish. Can you define what a leadership series is?
Yes. A leadership series is actually meant to start building that muscle of sharing. But as you mentioned, it's specific and there's several posts along with it. So a leadership series on LinkedIn is a collection of story-driven social posts. It's posted from the leader's personal LinkedIn account. And there's so many ways when we talk about this universe of leadership and employee storytelling. For us, it's big. It's a big universe. There's lots of ways to do it. But in this case, a story is typically in the written part of a LinkedIn post, but then supported by media like video, long form writing like LinkedIn articles. I just wrote one the other day about my experience posting on LinkedIn. That's meta. Also articles, PDFs, photos. So the intention of a leadership series is to give the audience insight into leaders' perspective and the culture at their company, and also to warm that leader up to continue doing it, continue posting on the regular.
Yeah, I love that clarification because we all can work towards being that person that's sharing once a week. But I think the leadership series is a great way to kick things off with the leader and to get them started in an easier way. I have a couple examples here. So when you think about a leader series and something that you might want to do, here's one that works really well, which is like the How I Got Here series. And so talking to a leader, and we're going to give tips later about facilitating the interview and getting these stories, but finding out the answer to like, why did they choose this industry? What's a story that kind of shows their entrance into the industry? Maybe a mentor. A second post could be appreciating a mentor that's helped them along the way. A third post could be a project or major accomplishment that kind of changed everything and was a big pivot point in their career. Post number 4 could be a mistake they've made. I think that's a really great kind of post for a leader to share because it's very humanizing and relatable. And then post number 5 is best advice you've ever received in your career. And then there should be a story there. If you got a great piece of advice, it should be how you applied it or how it impacted your career. So
I think I've used every single one of these too. I think this is a good idea. I think you're brilliant, and I think this is a great example, but I also think you've helped me similarly with these prompts. So great advice shared.
Thank you. Yeah, so if you're the marketing comms support person out there, it doesn't need to be rocket science. Like it's not like everything has to be the most earth-shattering post of all time, but just thinking through what stories does this person have and how can I group them into a series to be able to make it bite-sized. So here's one example. Another one that this one's probably a little bit more strategic, but let's say that you have a leader who your company is going back to work in person, you're having a hybrid work model. And so maybe you have a leader who has a perspective that they can share and positively support this company decision. So maybe one of their posts is lighthearted, what they're listening to on their commute into the office. So you could see how there could be a lot of really positive engagement around a post like that. People are sharing podcasts and ebooks and stuff that they're listening to. Post number 2, a little bit more of a business related topics. So impact created by in-person collaboration. So a story about how they were able to have an impromptu meeting with someone in the office and how it resulted in something really good for the business. Maybe post number 3 is a fun office event and something that they wouldn't have gotten if they'd been working from home. And then post number 4 could be tips for structuring your schedule to optimize those home and office days. So just also thinking through, yes, a more strategic thing, hybrid back to work, but here's a way that you can flesh that out over the course of a leader series.
Yeah, I think these are great examples. And I think the best series is intentional, it's specific. So I know we're going to talk about this today, but selecting a leader, finding a topic they have a unique perspective on, and then identifying a series of stories they can tell that bring that topic to life in an engaging way.
Yeah.
So, for example, together with Bernadette and Jill, I looked at my best performing posts over the past year, and I realized a lot of what I was talking about that performed well was entrepreneurship and raising children. And so I actually tried to talk a lot about those things at the same time. It's actually what I want to talk about. It's something but it's also a unique perspective I have. So I think that some of that comes from the series too, is when you actually start posting. And if you start in one series, you can maybe see patterns that might help you with future series as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. So yeah, great segue there. So I think so now that we know what a leadership series is, if you're looking to do this, a great place to start is picking that leader. Yeah. So how do you do it? Are there certain kind of leaders that are better candidates than others? Everyone has a story, but are there some people that are really great places to start?
I know you and I got to tell everybody. We're always like, okay, we learned very early on that the best storytellers are not necessarily the most charismatic and energetic and enthusiastic people, that everybody has a story and we can get a great story for people every time. So that's, of course, yes. But if you're just starting and you want to show traction right away, there are some leaders that you could pick that could help you accomplish your goals faster. Really, the thought is that you want to get a leader that wants to share and has something to say. And so it could be easy to start with a leader that's grown up in the industry. That doesn't feel like a personal topic, but it becomes one. So it's easy for for leaders, if you frame it that way. I want to hear about the evolution of the auto industry and your part in it and your career. That doesn't sound that intimidating about sharing stories. But that topic has so much value for a communicator, and it also lets the leader share a lot of their personal experiences. So I'd say that first is a leader that's grown up in that industry. Those stories have a lot of added relevance to your employee and candidate population. Also, I should tell you, there are, of course, great stories for internal mobility and for recruiting as well. I'd say a second leader would be maybe someone that's driving an important company initiative, someone that has some skin in the game, like they have a reason to get on the platform and talk about something. So, for example, we worked with an organization that was launching a wellness series. Well, we talked to the leader that was responsible for creating a wellness program, not a wellness series, a wellness program. So we talked to a leader and she could share her personal experiences with mental health and the wellness initiative because she wanted that program to be successful. And so she had a reason to share. And I think that is helpful. I'd say an important company initiative goes hand in hand with maybe a leader that's growing their team. So they have a reason to talk about the culture of their team and what it's like to work with them and their leadership philosophy. That will be relevant if their ultimate goal is to grow their team and recruit for their team, or recognize team members as well.
That's also great posts. Like when you are able to shout out someone on your team, those are like amazing posts, and it's easier to brag about someone else than yourself.
Oh, for sure. To get someone talking, it's much easier to talk about other people, their mentors and the people they're mentoring. For sure. I'd say another leader that you may want to, if you have every leader to choose from, they've all raised their hands, maybe look at those that might have an established LinkedIn network already. So sure, the number of connections, great. Someone that has 15 versus 15,000 connections, that's something to consider. But I think it's more of someone that understands the value of LinkedIn, where you're not starting from scratch. They understand what the platform does or what its value is really important. And maybe someone that's already warmed up the algorithm a little bit. They're already posting. They haven't done that layer yet, or maybe they've experimented a little bit but need some help with sharing employee stories. So I'd say that's someone else you can identify, someone's already on the platform and have grown their network a little bit.
Yeah, no, I love that tip. And yeah, that person probably has also seen these types of posts out there too.
Yeah.
So it's like you're not starting from scratch.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so you got a leadership series. You've identified the leaders who are going to participate, and they're super excited. They raise their hands. And from here, we have to uncover the stories and then create the content. We believe that a facilitated conversation is the best way to uncover stories and really to dig into it with your leaders. Can you talk a little bit more about that, why this facilitated process is so important?
Yes, this is like number one favorite topic is maybe the LinkedIn algorithm. Number two is maybe why you need a facilitated process. Yes, I would love to share with you why you need a facilitated process. The first I can say with experience, to let a leader say, oh, great, you want to participate, get writing, is really tough. And especially you want someone that's motivated. You want to start out already in a position of strength where the leader's engaged and you're helping them. So I'd say a facilitated process is really important because most people are not comfortable sharing their experiences out of the gate. They don't know how to write them. They don't know what's important. And I'd say having someone like a comms partner or marketing partner is really great because they know what content their audience wants to know. And they're also able to facilitate a conversation. The best content comes from a conversation, someone that's comfortable. And so not only is it easier for the leader, one, to have a facilitated process, two, you get better content because it's conversational. And also the person that's having the conversation with you knows the content that's going to resonate, so better content. And then three, as the comms leader, the facilitator responsible for the process, you're helping drive the relationship and the engagement from the beginning. It's not waiting for them to struggle and then you get involved. It's you being involved from the beginning, and then you can start to develop that rhythm of creating posts together and developing that partnership. So I'd say that's why a facilitated process, meaning interviews and conversations to uncover stories, is really important to this process.
Yep. And so as the resident comms person, marketing person here, these are some of my tips for if you are, oops, here we go. So if and when you are facilitating this interview with your leaders, here are some things you can do to make sure that you get the best stories. And the first is to do your homework. So you don't want to come in scripted and reading like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like all the questions that you want to ask, but you want to know a little bit about the person that you're interviewing. Same way if you're interviewing a candidate for a job, you want to know a little bit more about them so you can have a more productive conversation. So do a little bit of research, know maybe the trajectory of their career, look at their LinkedIn, see if they've shared anything in the past that you can get any kind of tidbits into what makes them tick and what stories they might want to tell. So this will just allow you to be prepared, start off on the right foot, and then maybe come in with a few questions that you know you're going to ask. Second, always record it and get it transcribed. Ideally, capturing it over video because that gives you even more content to create. So you can create video in addition to audio clips, text clips, or written text. So ideally on video, but at the very least, make sure that you're recording it from an audio standpoint, because this will allow you to create audio content, but then also to connect the dots, go back, make sure you haven't missed anything. Maybe you can connect two different themes that they spoke to. Because ideally you're doing this over time, multiple times with a lot of leaders, that by transcribing it, you're really able to go back and connect those themes. So always record it. Third is to be an active listener and follow the stories. This, I think, is probably the most important tip because without this one, you're really not going to get to the good stories. It can be really easy for someone to talk in that corporate speak. I think especially a leader, because that's one of the things that has gotten them to be a leader, is being really good about talking about the business. So you got to really pay close attention to those openings where you can ask follow-up questions. Can you give me an example of that? Oh, wow, that sounds like a really cool company initiative. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and give me an example of an impact it's had on your life? So asking those follow-up questions along the way to dig further in and make sure that you get past the kind of company speak and to the stories. And then finally, something that goes a really long way, and this might seem obvious, but is giving positive reinforcement. Remember, you're asking your leader to be vulnerable on social media, on a professional social media platform, which isn't always easy for everyone. And so making sure you're telling them, great job. Wow, that's a really great story. Our audience is going to love that. Wow, employees are going to love to hear that from you. So just giving that positive reinforcement along the way will reassure them that they're doing a great job and make them more excited to continue to participate.
Great tips. And I think you've used all of these on me.
Yeah. Sure. Oh, and something I'll also add with the facilitated process is whether it's a leader you've never met before or it's someone like Lauren and I that we have a near decade-long professional relationship, that you still want to do this. There still is value in asking those follow-up questions, getting to the why, helping them connect it to what it says about your culture, that these conversations really do result in higher quality content.
I agree.
Okay. So we got our leader, we've uncovered our stories, and now it's time to actually create the content for your leadership series on LinkedIn. As we know, this is really hard. This is like the hardest part. What tips would you give in terms of creating posts that resonate as a leader?
Yeah, I'd say content marketing rules still apply. The
Mhm.
first is that your leader and anyone isn't going to want to share or post content where they don't sound good, like where the audio is muffled or if their picture is blurry, or so the quality of the visuals is very important. And not only will the leader not want to get behind it and do more of it, but your audience isn't gonna isn't gonna you scroll right past things that like, what? I don't know. It's confusing. No, so the good visuals, of course, is very important still in this aspect. And then the second would be, of course, really good high quality content. The story needs to be there when you're creating content. So focus on substance, those human moments, the things that happen, and then what it actually says about your culture at large or the initiative or why it's important to share or what they learned. So I'd say that those are two tips to like high quality content that just always exist.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's, even if it feels like we've talked about it before, it still is really important for this LinkedIn channel. But there are some specific rules that apply to LinkedIn in terms of things that you can do and ways that you can craft your posts that are really going to make them more engaging.
Yes. So I'd say some things to keep in mind every time I write a LinkedIn post is just, is it going to stop the scroll? Is it written in a way that's LinkedIn friendly, that your audience is, oh, okay, thank you. Oh, I'm an example.
Got you.
And I guess in this example, I also started with the question. So starting with the hook, because if you're writing a lot of content or just even if you're writing a medium sized post to large, there's going to be that more. So you do want to hook someone so they want to click to read more about it. I think the thing that's most heartbreaking about great employee stories is if it's not written in a way for the platform, it goes unseen and unnoticed. So it's almost just like a little trick. But thanks for sharing this. So this would be a tip I would give if this is written spaced appropriately and there's a question at the top that is supposed to serve as a hook. And then I'd say, oh yeah, and I tag Stories Inc. here, which is great. So tagging the corporate channel. And this was a video of a story that I created. I know this video is transcribed. So that's the another tip. Make sure because not everyone's listening with the sound on for videos and audio clips and things like that. So having it transcribed is also very important to make sure that your content is actually consumed. So that would be one. Another tip would be tagging people. So I just learned something new the other day, which is I tag a lot of people. I talk about my experiences a lot. I tag the people who are there. I don't always necessarily give friends that, but I just learned that you're actually penalized if someone you tag doesn't interact with your post. So I'd say tagging.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, good tip. Who knew? I just found out.
But you do tag a lot of people and you do a great job. And I'll show you an example.
Oh yeah, look at me, tag fest. Sometimes we call this a tag fest in a loving way. That's right. So, and what we were talking about earlier, this is a post where my intention was to really highlight the team. So I did talk about my personal experience, but then I tagged team members as a way to recognize them as well. So yeah, I'd say that's a good LinkedIn rule too when you're creating posts.
Yeah, and I love this one. And I think a final, not all-encompassing tips, but the last tip we'll share in this kind of section here is making sure that your post is always tying back to your company and tying back to a cultural takeaway. So I think this post, you did a really great job of it here in terms of this post is about you going and observing one of our interview days and then just noticing the things that our team did that went above and beyond to make it a really successful day for the client. So tagging the people, but then also tying it back to Stories Inc. and the brand and what it says about us.
Yeah. And I did share, maybe one thing I could have done a little bit better is to expand on my personal aspect. My personal reason for writing this is because I went to observe an interview day and it was just so awesome. And I was one of the creators of the interview day, and to see how far it had come was really great. So it was a moment of reflection of not only how far we'd come as a company, but wow, we have now people who can take something that I originated and make it so much better. So that was a moment of reflection I had that I was able to capture in a post.
Mm-hmm. With some fun pictures too with you.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. The kind of last thing we're going to talk about here. So we talked about identifying the leader, facilitating the conversation, uncover the stories, creating engaging posts, and then our fickle friend, the LinkedIn algorithm.
Oh,
And
sneaky snake.
and I don't think anyone's going to be able to 100% win, but there are some
Right.
things that you can do to give your post a better chance of getting.
Yes. A few caveats. I would love to share some rules, but I would also some caveats. The first is that it's always changing. The second is that I love to know the rules because I like games and I do want my posts to be seen. That's something that's important to me, and I want to make sure that I'm also creating content that resonates. But anyway, all that to say, the best source of your LinkedIn rules are going to be from your experiences, hands down. So there's things that like I have read as a best practice, but in my own experience, they are counter. So I go with my experience. But anyway, some basic rules. The first would be post Monday through Friday during business hours, considering many time zones. This makes sense. It's when most people are on the platform, most people can see it, can see your post. I just would also tell you that in my experience, I've also had very successful posts on a Saturday. And sometimes LinkedIn will serve your post 3 weeks later. So there's some nuances there, but I think that basic idea of you're getting started, post when people are on the platform, that's solid advice. But just know it's not end all be all advice. I'd say another is to let other people in the company, if your leader is posting, and again, there's going to be a company tie or a culture tie. The people that they're talking about, they could be tagging, but if they're not, and even if they are, having some kind of internal mechanism to let everyone know that the post is live is helpful. So we have a Slack channel, for example, no pressure. In fact, sometimes we say, if you like it, if you don't like it, you don't have to. It's not mandatory, but it is true that posts that get a lot of interaction at the beginning do flag for LinkedIn that maybe this is something that they're going to show to more of your network. So it is a game in that way, but letting people know that your post is live because you're talking about work is a best practice and something that you should consider. Also, be a good LinkedIn corporate citizen, which is the whole point. It belies the whole series if your leader is just going to post something and then shut their laptop and go on to something else. You do have to engage with the post because not only is it polite in the world of LinkedIn, but that's what they're there for, is to build their networks and engage with people. So if people are engaging with the post, the poster must respond in kind and ideally within the first hour, because that's really important to flag for LinkedIn that this is a high quality post that should be shared to more people, but also through the life of the post. If you're asking a question or if you're inviting people to engage with you, you need to be active. So I'd say that's an important rule. I'd say post your story. I have to admit, I'm not great at waiting. If I have the thought and I have the post ready, I want to go. I want it to be live, but it can be advantageous to the communications person and the leader to time their posts in a way where people are going to be talking about something, whether that's Women's History Month, whether that's the Super Bowl, whatever, Ryan Gosling, I don't know, whatever it may be. If people are talking about the Barbie performance and somehow your post is tied to that, that's when you should post. So be aware of just when other people are talking, your post is more relevant. So that's a tip. Also, this is a tip. It's not my favorite, but it is just true. It's something that you and I go back and forth on all the time. You're not always sure how your pictures, photos are going to look. So we know that LinkedIn has made some changes. Sometimes you think it looks great, and then you post it, and then, oh wow, the third photo was cut in this very strange way. It needs to be resized. LinkedIn has some really cool tools that allow you to do that before you post, but I can still tell you from experience that sometimes when it's live, you're like, this still doesn't look right. I did the thing, still doesn't. I did the resizing. So just know that if that happens, you as the comms person, the leader supporter, need to be there to help them take it down and find the right. Those images are so important.
Resize it. Yep.
Yeah.
Sometimes you drop everything and go to Canva
Resizing
or
emojis.
your resize channel of choice. resize the photo.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's a good tip. Give yourself grace too. That sometimes LinkedIn is weird.
Sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes it's not your fault. It's for sure. I agree. So those are some kind of basic LinkedIn posting thoughts, content thoughts.
Awesome. Yeah, I think those are really helpful. Okay, so we are at time, but thanks for joining us, Lauren.
Thank you.
Yeah, LinkedIn is one of both of our favorite topics. So I could talk about this all day. But just to quickly summarize, if you're looking to activate your leaders, find a leader who has a perspective and a way that they can talk about the business and create that overlap. Always tie posts back to your company brand. Substantive stories are really the most effective type of content on LinkedIn. So really make sure you're getting to those stories, facilitate that conversation to get the stories. I'm a little bit out of order here. And do your best to follow the LinkedIn algorithm tips, but knowing that your experience is really going to be the best teacher along the way.
Yes, agree. Great tips. Great session. I'm so glad we did this together. I feel like we really gave it all we got.
Yeah.
If anyone has questions, tag us.
Yes, connect with Lauren and I. We both are always trying to share our stories on social. So would love to add you to our networks and get to see your stories too.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Bernadette.
Bye.